Chapter 6, Reality Check. Think about it for a moment, will you? My life started out headed in one direction. My early stages of childhood began with the death of my twin sister. Then I was abandoned by my father, who was an abusive alcoholic. We'll talk more about him in part 2. As if that wasn't tough enough, I ended up with a stepfather that was addicted to crack cocaine and was also verbally abusive to me. I grew up in drug and crime-infested communities and had to relocate so often that by 9th grade, I was at my 9th school. I was picked on and bullied. I was booed in front of my entire high school. I ended up joining a gang and becoming a drug dealer. I was literally becoming a product of my environment. That direction was destructive. Everywhere I turned, there was addiction, violence, sadness, and depression. I had every excuse to stay in that same condition. I was abandoned, broken, rejected, and felt worthless. I was a complete loser, or so I thought. In the midst of all that turmoil in my life, I did manage to develop a relationship with God. I believe to this day that it was that spiritual relationship that gave me the strength and ability to endure all of the hardships I have managed to survive. Let me remind you that I was raised in church just as much as I was raised in the ghetto. Therefore, there was always a struggle with identity. Am I what I'm learning from the church, or am I what I'm learning from the streets? These are questions that always seem to be in my mind. The truth is that I was being molded and shaped by both realities. What really made the difference for me is that I had to reach a point in my life where I was able to decide. Yes, I had to make a decision whether I was going to keep allowing things to happen to me or start making things happen for me. Perhaps you may be in a similar position. You may be struggling to make a difficult decision. You may be struggling with having to overcome something in your own life. You may be facing a situation right now that seems impossible for you to make it out of. That struggle may be something similar to what I was dealing with, or it may be something completely different. I don't claim to know all of the answers to every problem. I don't even claim to be an expert on problem solving. What I do know is that there is always a solution to every problem. In the words of my favorite rapper, the late Tupac Shakur, through every dark night, there's a bright day after that. Now you may be thinking to yourself that there is no way out for you. You may be even feeling a bit of hopelessness and trapped. What statistics say about people like you, growing up the way you do, having been talked about the way you've been, looking the way you do, having experienced what you have, you aren't worthy. If statistics say you aren't worthy, then it must be true. So why bother trying to change, right? Well, I want you to know that I understand exactly how you feel. Honestly, I get it. But I also want you to know that situations nor feelings don't always tell you what's real. Sometimes feelings can exaggerate the truth a bit. Feelings can take you on all sorts of emotional roller coaster rides. They can have you up one minute and down the next. Then they can have you twisting and turning before you even get a chance to notice it. What we must do is grab a hold of our emotions and make every attempt to control our feelings whenever possible. When you feel overwhelmed, there is nothing wrong with simply stopping. Take a moment for yourself and breathe. Take a deep breath and relax your mind. This will give you the ability to think clearly. It's hard to make right decisions when your mind is clouded by distractions and illusions. In fact, it's almost impossible to truly see. A clear thinking mind will give you a clearer vision of what's in front of you and what you need to do next. This is very important in order for you to make the transition from where you are to where you want or need to be. If you can't see what's in front of you, then how do you expect to travel from one point to your destination? Another thing we must do is pay attention to our direction. Now I understand why the windshield in vehicles are so much larger than the rearview mirror. This means that we should not be focusing on what's behind us if we are trying to obtain what is in front of us. Do not allow negative memories to block your vision. Sometimes we waste too much time thinking about what we have been through that it prevents us from making progress towards where we are meant to be. One thing I've learned is that we really are what we think. If we are constantly thinking about the problems that we've faced or are currently facing, then we literally will become or remain those problems. Therefore, it is critical that we begin to think more about the solutions to our problems or overcoming whatever it is that we are struggling with. Write down what the problem is, then consider a way to get out of it. It may seem huge, impossible even, but how do you eat your favorite cake or pie? One bite at a time, bite by bite, 1 foot in front of the other, 1 second at a time. That mode of thinking will give you the ability to move and see past your issues and or your current situation. Now that we can see more, we can be more. I also found out that all of the great lessons I've learned means absolutely nothing without consistency. If I'm not consistently working on the solution, even when I'm tired or it doesn't feel good, I'll never make it. This is even true for grief. Losing my twin, classmates, friends, and other loved ones along the way could have paralyzed me. It may be paralyzing to you. Grief is a pain that isn't visible. You can't get stitches or put a bandage over it, but it hurts and leaves a scar just the same. Sometimes the pain is a dull ache and sometimes it's a strong force to endure, but you have to stay consistent for you. Keep moving in the direction that is helpful for your life and honorable to those you've lost. You owe you to see past the lies, to become the best version of yourself. Again, 1 bite, 1 step, 1 day, 1 hour, 1 minute, 1 second at a time. Consistency.